Today's R&B and Throwbacks 89.9 KMOJ, the loudmouth Zany K with you. Thanks a lot for hanging around. It's time now for Minneapolis 360. Our host, Anthony, and he is good to go. How are you this afternoon, Anthony?
I am good. Zany K, how you doing today? It is good for you to be here, and it's good to hear your voice riding shotgun today. I appreciate you, brother. How you been?
I am good. I'm staying healthy as I possibly can. Every day we wake up to something different. These days it's good news, it's bad news, it's worse news. So I'm just doing the best that I can, man, to hang in there.
And we all are, and it's also good to have you back on KMOJ too. So I just I'm glad to hear you back on and doing the show. So I appreciate you riding shotgun today, Zany K. Thank you, Minneapolis. This is Anthony Taylor. I am the African American Community Specialist for the city of Minneapolis. This is Minneapolis 360, and I am happy to be here. I am blessed to be on KMOJ Radio. This has been about a year and a half that we've had Minneapolis 360 on the show, and I will say today, out of all the shows that I have done for the city of Minneapolis and KMOJ Minneapolis 360s, this by far is the most difficult show and also the most important show that I've ever been a part of today. With that being said, we are going to go an hour today. Typically, we go about a half hour. So we are going from 1 to 2 today because there's a lot of things that need to be discussed. Today, from 1 to 1:30, I'll have Kevin from the health department come on and talk about some of the guidelines for opening restaurants in Minneapolis. We know that the governor has loosened a lot of restrictions on restaurants and businesses. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But at 1:30, I really want folks to tune in too, because I have a special guest on at 1:30 to talk about an important announcement that she wants to talk about and share. That segment is co-produced and sponsored with support of KMOJ at 1:30. So it's a jam-packed show, and it's important. So I want folks to really be able to tune in to be able to hear what we have to say today. But first, what I want to do is I want to make sure, and I will be remiss to not give my condolences to the family of George Floyd, whose murder happened on Memorial Day on Monday. It is a sad situation. It is a sad state of affairs that in our country, historically, black men have been targeted with violence by police officers and killed, their lives taken away, caught on video. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge that, because I feel the pain as well as our community feels the pain of what we saw, and historically how black men have been treated in this country. And I want to acknowledge that. So my thoughts and prayers are out to the George Floyd family. My blessings, my prayers are with the family and also with the community of Minneapolis, because we all share in this pain. I was able to be a part of the rally yesterday over South, and I saw a lot of pain in people's faces. So I just want to acknowledge that this show is coming to you with a heavy heart, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge that. So my thoughts and prayers are out to George Floyd. And it's hard today because we're dealing with this situation that's happening in our community and with our loved ones, but also we are in the midst of a pandemic. COVID-19 has captured our world, our nation, our city. And as you know, for the last 2 months, we've been going every week to talk about COVID and some of the things that are happening around COVID. We've given you so much information. And that was really my goal when we started to do this show, was to be able to give folks in Minneapolis information on how they can access resources, take care of their families, be knowledgeable, activate their voices. So even though I do this show with a heavy heart, I want to make sure that we still are committed to give COVID-19 updates and information. So as I always get started before the show, I like to give some numbers and some updates with COVID. Again, we're talking now, there's 22,464 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the state of Minnesota. In Minneapolis, out of those cases, it's 2,800 and 73 in Minneapolis. Statewide, 23% of those cases are African American. In the city of Minneapolis alone, it is 35% of people who have tested positive. Now, our numbers do still increase. They're not increasing at the rate they have been weekly, but it's still a problem. Again, I want to make sure folks, continue to social distance, physical distance, continue to stay home if you have to, practice the 6 feet of space, wash your hands, use your mask. And one thing I want to say, too, being at the rally yesterday, and I think I heard a lot of people talk about this, too, I was pleasantly surprised with the number of people wearing masks in that rally. It was actually one of the most happy thoughts and visuals I've had in a long time. So I think that really the messaging is getting out there to wear masks in public. And with that being said, the mayor has required and did an emergency regulation requiring you to wear masks in stores, buildings, and other places. And we'll get into that with my guest today about that order. And I think that just happened, took effect yesterday. So I think I want to give information to folks on really what that means. And also, too, with some of those restrictions with doors opening, Minneapolis folks have to have a plan in place when it comes to reopening their business. So it's called a COVID-19 preparedness plan that allows physical distancing. Stores and restaurants have to open up at 50% or less capacity. They also have to be able to train their workers around the plan and procedures and what that means, and also face covering. So that's important. My guest will talk about that quite a bit when it comes to that. Also, too, Governor Walz, however, loosened some restrictions with churches and mosques and synagogues and other places of worship, that now that folks can have service. And I think this is important, Minneapolis, to remember that, and as I give you some of these rules, we missed a lot of things with the restrictions, and a lot of us missed Easter to be able to go into our places of worship, and we also missed that point of self-care to be able to go to our places of worship because of the restrictions, but some of those are lifted. So just to give you a few basic information, if you have a venue with 250 people or less, it has to be at 25% normal capacity. So make sure that you understand, and I talk to your local places of worship to what that means, like whether it's indoors or outdoors, it has to be 25% capacity or less, and also be in accordance with the Minnesota Department of Health guidelines. Churches still can do virtual, so and all your other places of worship can still do virtual, so please make sure that you check in. But those are some of the restrictions that are being in place. So I want to make sure folks understand that and know that. And I have the perfect guest to come on and talk about these restrictions and the mask order and everything else. I want to welcome my guest, Kevin Kasper-Seth from the Health Department. Kevin, welcome to KMOJ Minneapolis 360. How you doing?
Very good. Thank you for the introduction.
Kevin, just tell us real quick, what do you do for the Health Department?
I am one of the supervisors there at the City of Minneapolis Health Department, and we oversee about 18 inspectors that do food, lodging, and pools inspections.
So that's important, because what's happening with the restaurants, outdoor seating, service beginning June 1st. I know the city wants to make sure this goes as smooth as possible. Kind of give folks the basic takeaways around what goes into this order, allowing restaurants and places to be able to start service June 1st.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you mentioned, so is allowing restaurants and bars to offer outdoor dining beginning of June 1st. And to help these businesses, the City of Minneapolis has released guidance for restaurants and bars to open. And in this framework for the city to move through and emerge from this pandemic as a more equitable, inclusive, resilient, and innovative city. So all the guidance is made available to the bars and businesses.
So with this initiative, so they're starting to open up, they're starting to serve customers. What can restaurants and bars do to take those precautions for A, their employees, and B, for their customers?
Sure. Restaurants and bars may offer outdoor service in support of their employees and customers in reopening under the following conditions. I'm going to list a number of them here. They need to have adopted, posted, trained, and implemented a COVID-19 preparedness plan. Now, this plan includes social distancing guidelines for workers and customers. They can only offer outdoor dining. There needs to be at least 6 feet between tables. No more than 50 total diners for an outdoor restaurant. At those tables, there can only be no more than 4 people in a group, or 6 people if they're from the same family. All workers need to be asked questions about their health when they're coming into work. Any workers with any unexplained symptoms of cough or fever must be sent home, and the city's sick and safe time ordinance applies to all restaurant workers and requires restaurant owners to provide paid sick leave to all employees. All customers need to make reservations ahead of time. All workers that are in face-to-face interaction with the public are required to wear masks. Also, customers are required to wear masks when they're entering the building of the restaurant for use of the restrooms or taking an elevator up to the patio seating.
So with these restrictions and guidelines, and I'm glad you gave us those lists, I just want to kind of some clarifying questions, because what really resonates to me, in fact, all of this information you did too, but what you're saying now is that if you don't have outdoor seating, then you can't open your restaurant, and you have to make reservations if you're a customer. What happens, and also customers has to wear masks as well. Are there any type of enforcement in place with these restaurants? What can owners do if customers refuse to wear masks inside these establishments? And again, this is outside, so I get that. But what if there's any enforcement behind that?
Now, for enforcement piece, the businesses are allowed to go ahead and enforce since it's their main business. But there are other means as well. You could call 311, which goes to the city's hotline to do a complaint, and all enforcement is complaint-based from the city.
And as we've talked about a lot, our listeners know quite well about 311 and how helpful it is to be able to get information anywhere, anytime about a lot of things happening in the city. So, Kevin, I want to just transition into this mask order that the mayor has stated. Talk about those requirements on wearing masks in public places.
Sure. Starting yesterday, people are required to use a cloth face mask, face covering in indoor places, known as public accommodations. And these places are listed as retail stores, hotels, government buildings, service establishments, service centers, recreational facilities, and educational institutions. Also, the reason why they're requiring face masks is medical research has indicated that COVID-19 may have a high rate of transmission through respiratory droplets, particularly while indoors, and that wearing a mask can help reduce the risk of community spread. Research has also shown that people who are asymptomatic or yet to show signs of the virus can still transmit it without knowing they have contracted it. That's why it's important.
So again, go over that list of places that include with the mask, Kevin, one more time.
Sure, definitely. Retail stores, hotels, government buildings, service establishments, educational institutions, recreational facilities, and also service centers.
And that's mostly a lot of services folks need all the time. They're going to stores, they're going into buildings, so I think that's important for folks to know as well. But just to go back quick, if I am a restaurant that does not have outdoor seating, how can I operate my business?
Yeah, so for a restaurant that doesn't have outdoor seating, they can expand outdoors so customers can be served outside. So the city has a process for restaurants and bars for expanding outdoor dining space and is streamlining it to allow these expansions. The city will allow creative uses of outdoor spaces for dining as long as the expansion does not impede pedestrian ways, transit or bicycle travels, or accessibility into and from the building. The city offers 4 outdoor expansion types, and I'm going to list them here. They're called the temporary expansion of premises permit. This will allow the restaurant operator to expand their license outdoors to the adjacent parking lot, parking spaces, and available green spaces. Another one is called the Sidewalk Cafe expansion option. Now, this will allow businesses that have sidewalk cafes already to expand, provided that they meet specific criteria, such as ensuring ADA compliance, remains in effect on the sidewalk for pedestrians, written approval from the property owner, and permission from the adjacent business if expanding in front of another storefront. The Street Cafe program allows business to convert on-street parking spaces into seating area for diners. Now, the city is still working on the final details on this process, so please do ask about this and see where it's at if you're applying for the Street Cafe program. Activation, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kevin. This is Zany K over at KMOJ. So you're saying if an establishment has parking right in front of the building, off the curb, they can expand that for seating? Is traffic an issue? Am I understanding that right?
Yes, they can. You have to go ahead and contact the business license department. They would have more of the details.
Okay,
but if it meets all their guidelines, they are able to expand.
Wow. Okay.
And I think that's important, right? Because there's a lot of places that will look at that information, Zany, and think that that's helpful, right?
Yep.
And thank you for that, Kevin. So you talked about the limitations. Does the city are they able to grant permission for a temporary expansion?
Yeah, I mean, neighborhoods are supportive and want businesses to get back into operation. With that in mind, there is a limit, considering there are families to consider, adults working remotely from home. I mean, this will be added noise or congestion is factored into the business returning to operation. So outdoor expansion plans need to be mindful of these interactions. Also, extension of temporary outdoor expansions are limited to certain hours of operation, which align with the city ordinance, Sunday through Thursday until 10 p.m. and Friday through Saturday until 11 p.m.
So being able to get this temporary order, are there fees involved with that too as well, Kevin? Are the city waiving fees?
Fees involved in getting these, the city is waiving Street Cafe, Sidewalk Cafe expansion, and extended temporary expansion of premises permit fees. So fees are being waived for these expansions.
Okay, and also just talk real quickly about the application process. Kevin, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, definitely. Applicants are required to notify neighborhood associations, business associations, and respective city council representative first. As part of the application, businesses should provide a 5-day public notice of the intent to expand to the outdoors before doing so. Community opposition could result in business needing to identify another venue to expand its operation if needed to be.
Okay.
And this is all good information because I think a lot of folks, especially small business owners, are ready to get back to work so they can, take care of their families, take care of their employees, serve customers. I mean, there's a lot of people during this time that weren't able to open and close. And restaurants, and I think that's part of our social fabric, is to be able to get out and get to these restaurants and bars as long as they're practicing these guidelines is very important. So if we're talking right now about bars and restaurants, there's got to be some other places and establishments that can open or start taking customers. Kevin, who are those places?
Now, on June 1st, bars and restaurants are allowed to open for outdoor seating. Also, other personal service businesses are allowed to open as well, and these include hair and nail salons, barbershops, and tattoo parlors. But businesses must also follow these guidelines as well. They have to adopt and implement a COVID-19 preparedness plan, limit the number of clients inside the business at any time to ensure 6 feet of distance, reduce occupant capacity to no more than 25%. All clients will have to be by appointment only, no walk-ins allowed, and they will require workers and clients to wear masks at all times.
Yeah, that's important too as well. One question. So if I'm listening to this show, Kevin, on the radio, and I hear that you say that, and there's these guidelines, is there any accountability that goes into these guidelines? So if I'm a customer and I hear about all the guidelines and know it, is there a way to hold these establishments accountable? Do they have to send in their preparedness plan to the city? What does that look like?
So all these businesses will get approved, and their COVID preparedness plans would be submitted to the state. Now, the state is the ones that will be reviewing and approving. If customers that go in, they're allowed to see these preparedness plans because they'll be posted. Customers can also, of course, use our complaint 311 hotline if they were not to see a preparedness plan available.
Perfect. We're talking with Kevin Kasperseth from the Health Department. We've got a few more minutes in this segment, Kevin, so just kind of give folks more information where they can go so they can be prepared for opening June 1st.
Yeah, the city has created an online toolkit for businesses to consult as they prepare to open. For any information, the city guidance for business, go to minneapolis.mn.gov/coronavirus. Guidelines will be available in both English, Spanish, Hmong, and Somali. Also, business owners can contact the city's small business team to get connected to a business technical assistance provider for one-on-one consultation. So all they have to do is just go ahead and call 311 to ask for one-on-one technical assistance.
All right, so Kevin,
also,
again, I'm sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
Go ahead, Zane.
Okay,
go ahead.
so what I'm glad to see, Kevin, here is that there's a lot of wiggle room. There are different options for businesses because most of the, when the order first came out, everybody was, well, what about me? And what about me? And how can I get in where I fit in? And so I like to see that there are a lot of options. I want to go back shortly to people who are dining at these establishments. If you're dining outdoors, what are their regulations? Now, even if they're outdoors, the tables are spaced, I'm sitting at a seat with my wife and another couple, do we have to still wear masks? How do we get a table? Do we have to make reservations, things like that? Are there certain rules that people should know about before they just pop up at these establishments?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, customers still have to do their part as well, as so do businesses. So all our customers not eating or drinking need to wear a mask. Customers need to make reservations at restaurants. You can't have a group larger than 4.
Oh, okay. But
if you're in the same family, you could have groups up to 6. You need to make an appointment for salons and barbershops. You need to wear a mask there as well.
Okay.
For retail spaces, I mean, only 25% of occupancy in the store is allowed. And again, you need to wear a mask in those retail spaces. And anywhere that is public accommodation, wear a face mask unless you are a child under 2 or have other, medical conditions that prevent you to do so.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing here, and as you explain it and flesh it out, we're seeing that, Anthony. The landscape is changing. It's going to be more and more common that everybody you see is going to have a mask on.
And that's definitely true, and that's a great question that you brought up, Zany, because we're living in a new age, so dining experiences will be different than what it used to. And what I think, too, is important that, and Kevin, I want you to kind of talk about this, too. Those masks, depending on where you get them and how many times you use them, can be expensive. So give me, I guess, and folks, what's the definition of a mask? What's acceptable as well, too, that folks can use going into these establishments if we're talking about dining in a whole new era now?
Sure, yeah. I mean, mask is just basically a face covering. You can even create one. Face mask can be made out of materials from your own home, such as a bandana, T-shirt, or even other fabric materials laying around in your house. There are tutorials online as well that you can use to make a mask, and it's pretty simple.
And thank you for that information, Kevin. We are talking to Kevin Kasper-Seth from the Health Department. Zany brought up a great question on what that looks like, and there may be some gray areas in there too, Zany. I mean, if I got 4 friends, we might all be cousins, So I don't think that restaurants, and correct me with that, Kevin, are they going that deep to say, okay, we're all family because we got 6 people? I mean, just there's some gray area there. So, because I see if there's different racial components in the family. I mean, I don't know if that's been flushed out or not, but I just want to see how strict, or has that been talked about family members in groups of 6. Does that make sense? My question.
It does make sense. It has been fleshed out yet. I mean, there are some gray areas, but it's up to the customers as well to use their best judgment. I mean, if you are from the same family, you're seeing each other more often, you're around each other. I mean, use your best judgment for that and do 6 groups for that family. I don't know if the business is going to make that determination, but like you said, there are some gray areas there.
Kevin Kasper-Seth from the Health Department. Go ahead, Zany.
No, I was just thinking. I have a little baby boy. How am I going to get him to wear a mask? I'm just like, I've seen small children with him, but I'm talking a toddler. He's not going to keep that. I'll work on it. We'll make it a game. I don't know.
Well, I think Kevin talked about under 2 years old. Kevin, is that correct? They're not required to wear masks?
Yes, anybody under the year 2 years or younger is not required to wear a mask.
Oh, okay, got it.
So you're good, Zany.
We'll see. We still should make it a game, just to practice. If this is going to be the way of if this is going to be the way of the world, we might as well start now.
Absolutely. Kevin, I want to thank you. We got about a minute left. Just some real good takeaways that folks should come away with in this conversation. Give us a couple of tips that you think are most important when we're talking about the mask regulation. We're talking about the bars and restaurants, salons, barbershops being open. Give us a couple of tips that folks should really, really, really key in on this during this time.
Yeah, definitely wear a mask, especially now that orders are out. Customers as well, I strongly suggest wear a mask even though you're not indoors. For workers, you do have to wear a mask when you're face-to-face with customers. Another thing is, call the State Department of Labor and Industry for workplace if you have complaints, and also 311 for any violations that is against the city's mask order as well. And social distancing is key as well. If you can't keep a 6 feet distance, wear a mask.
Absolutely. Kevin, I want to thank you today for being on Minneapolis 360. Very good information. And I thank you for coming.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
Kevin Kasper-Seth from the Health Department. We are going to take a short break here and come back with a very special guest that has a big announcement that she wants to talk about. So stay tuned. This is Minneapolis 360.
This hour of programming on KMOJ is supported in part by the following underwriters.
By now, most of us have received a letter to respond to the 2020 census. Census 2020 is a chance to count everyone in our community. Make sure you respond and count all kids and babies. Count your own kids, your grandkids, foster kids, and any children staying with you that have no other permanent address. When babies and children are counted, the programs that support them and their families get more of the federal funding for public services like clinics, schools, public transit, and hundreds of programs they need for the next 10 years, most of their childhood. Learn more and get counted at 2020census.gov.
Brookdale Health is open, helping patients with inquiries from auto crashes for over 37 years, founded by Dr. Kent Erickson, chiropractor. Experienced doctors of physical therapy and chiropractic provide treatment for auto crashes. There's a lot to deal with after an accident. Brookdale Health helps with insurance paperwork and referral to attorneys. Brookdale Health doctors pay special attention to cleaning and sanitation following CDC guidelines to protect patients and staff. If you have pain, Brookdale Health is open. For more information, 763-561-4045. Brookdale Health.
89.9 KMOJ, today's R&B and throwbacks. Loudmouth Zany K on with Anthony from Minneapolis 360. And I guess, Anthony, we have another special guest here on the call who's going to be on the show today joining us.
We have definitely a special guest. Thank you, Zany. Minneapolis 360. I want to first introduce my guest today. She has been an important person in the Minneapolis area. She is a radio personality. She is an entrepreneur. She's a mother. She's done many things for the community. She's a sister. She is a friend. And she called me the other day and gave me some information, and she wanted to share today. And I want to bring in my co-host, my riding shotgun partner, Glam Life Kim, to the show. She is our guest, and if you notice in the beginning of the show, she was not present, and she has always been here, Minneapolis. But Glam Life Kim tested positive for COVID-19, and she reached out to me in one of the most heartfelt conversations I have ever had with a person. And she told me that she contacted COVID, but what was really the most inspiring thing that I heard from Glam Life Kim was that she thought it was her duty and her purpose to share her story with our community. And I really want to turn this show over to her because her spirit shines through every day in the studio, the people who know her, the events, the parties, and she wants to share this. So Kim, welcome, sister, to be our guest today, not riding shotgun, but telling your story, your testimonial today. How you feeling today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am feeling great. I'm a little nervous, and this is crazy because, I'm on the radio all the time, every weekend. I can't believe that I feel nervous today. But, Twin Cities, I wanted to personally let you all know that, yes, last Thursday I tested positive for the coronavirus. And I'm not perfect by any means, and I'm not trying to give anyone advice, but I just want you guys to know and understand that it's real. I know sometimes we don't take it serious or we don't really know until it really hits home or someone that we know has it. And I have it, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. So I just wanted you guys to hear it personally from me, to just stay safe. I know on June 1st, bars and restaurants are going to open up. Don't be in a rush. And even if you do, I'm not saying to live in fear at all. I'm just saying, there's protective measurements, just that, for instance, what Kevin just told us about wearing masks, just the little things that we can do to help slow down and prevent the risk of the virus.
And coming from you, that's so important. So I think a lot of people, this is resonating with community, and I hope it does because you've got a lot more to share. But coming from you as a person in the community that's doing parties, events, entrepreneur, businesswoman, this is important coming from you. And just tell folks why you thought it was important to share this information, Kim.
Well, so first, I'm going to say I don't know where it came from. So that's first and foremost of why it's important, right? Because this virus you can pick up anywhere. And unfortunately, there have, of course, as soon as I found out that I got it, I contacted the people who had been around me. Thank God that, most of everyone was tested negative. There was a kid that I was around who tested positive, and there was, for certain, I know there was a kid that I was around. That's the only person that we know for certain that tested positive. And so the crazy thing is that this child had been having diarrhea since after Mother's Day, and we thought that maybe, it was some food or something that she ate. And so just as we didn't think of it as being a symptom of COVID, and we didn't find out until yesterday that she tested positive. But, my symptoms was a little bit different from other people, where I don't have any cough. I have not been sneezing. How I knew that I had, or what made me contact the doctor to get tested, was because I had lost my taste and my smell. I went to Popeye's Chicken, y'all. I love. If you know me, you know I love Popeye's.
That's right.
That
That's
taste,
right.
those French fries and that chicken. It's so. I mean, if you can't taste the seasoning of the chicken or the French fries at Popeye's, then there's a problem. That's what happened.
It's a problem. Yeah.
It's a problem. I got my 2-piece and and I couldn't taste it.
Wow.
And I was like,
wow.
Oh my God, something's wrong. And then, someone told me, well, hey, why don't you, can you smell? So then I went to smell a bag of, and this is from St. Louis, the hot riplet. And I went to smell a bag of chips, and it's spicy. And I couldn't really smell the season or the taste of that. I sprayed some air freshener, and I couldn't smell it. So I called the doctor immediately. And I told the doctor what my symptoms are. And I know some of you have experienced this, where if you call, you may be experiencing something, or you just want to get tested just to get tested, but they send you through a bunch of questions just to make sure, so that there is enough tests for those who actually need it, that you qualify to be tested. So I went to Park Nicollet, and I got tested, and the next day they called me and sent me an email with a letter that stated that I tested positive for Corona V and COVID-19. So, I mean, that was it's crazy, because I kind of, as soon as I knew I couldn't smell or taste, I knew something was wrong, and I felt it in my heart that it was, that I had it. But again, why I'm here today is because I want you all to know, and it's not to say that I didn't take it serious, because I did take it serious. I was aware that there was a virus, but I've heard a lot of comments and just, remarks that there's no such thing as the coronavirus, that it's something that the government put in the air. I've heard people say that black folks ain't getting it, and that we're strong. Right. What other things? I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard, a whole bunch of different remarks. I've heard people, of course, say that, well, at some point, everybody is going to get it, so I'm not going to stop making my money, that, and I just want to say again, like I said in the beginning, I don't want you guys to live in fear. I'm not saying not to handle your business. I'm saying that there's things set in place as far as wearing a mask, as far as making sure that you're washing your hands, as far as staying 6 feet away from people. There's measurements that are in place so that we can slow down the risk of this virus.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I did.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I just was going to say there's a couple things, even with the mask, that we got to be careful about, masks and gloves. I know some people are like, well, I'm going to wear gloves. Okay? It's okay to wear gloves. Say, for instance, you pull up to the gas station, you got your gloves in the car. It's okay to grab your gloves, put them on, pump your gas, throw your gloves away immediately. When you continue to touch things with the gloves on, it defeats the purpose. It's the same even with our cloth mask. If you're coughing into it, and, wash your mask daily, or wear a new one if you're using the disposable mask. I posted on my Facebook, and I'm going to start a group page, just with people, because sometimes I know that for some people, it's not to say it's embarrassing, but some people just don't want to, they're embarrassed to tell people that, hey, I have the coronavirus, or I may have been exposed.
Right.
But
Now, at this point, it's like shameful, right? It's shameful to so many things, right? You're standing next to somebody and you take a photo and you're afraid that people are going to shame you for social distancing and all this kind of stuff. Kim Glamlife is on with us today. Kim, this is Zany. So now, so that people know that on the other side, there's some hope, right? But now that you've tested positive and you've consulted with the doctors and you have all this additional information, what happens from now?
So what I had to do was so first of all, I personally made sure that I reached out to everybody that I came into contact with. So immediately after taking the test, I was supposed to, not go outside, go home until my test results came back. When my test results came back positive, my doctor told me that I'm supposed to self-quarantine now at the end of the day on May 29th, as long as my taste and smell is back, that I'm not having any other symptoms. I do have back, neck, and shoulder pain. It's very severe. Like, it hurts really bad. It's something I wouldn't, push on anybody. Every day, constantly, I'm in pain, and I have to take Tylenol for the pain. But they told me to stay in the house until the end of the day on the 29th. On the 30th, if everything is okay, I am able to go outside. I'm in no rush to go outside.
Okay.
And but they also told me for the people who I had been around that they should self-isolate themselves for 14 days because they were exposed to the virus.
Wow.
And I know that that's hard to do, you guys. And I know that, I had someone tell me that, that they're not going to be in jail because of, because I got the virus, and, that pretty much like, since I tested negative, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. However, the doctors are very adamant in telling you just because you tested negative today, that does not mean that in the next day or two that you won't test positive.
Okay.
Right.
So don't be in a rush. It's okay. What's going to stop in 14 days? If everybody self-isolates for those 14 days, you're better safe than sorry. You don't risk the chance of you being contagious and coming in contact with somebody else who could get it, whose immune system may not handle it like mine or yours. They may die from it.
Okay. And what I really want to make sure, too, that folks understand, you've been a part of these COVID-19 shows since we started, right? So we have talked about everything, how important it is. And we've had conversations, me and you, on the air and off the air about how black folks, and let's just call it what it is, have these myths and these narratives out there that we won't get these things, but it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody, and that's something that resonated with me when you talked about that, because you knew all the information that was out there. You knew everything that was important to do. You did those things, and you still got COVID-19.
I had someone tell me you should take your own advice because you got the virus, I didn't. Let me tell you this. I'm not giving anybody any advice. I'm merely saying that I can give advice because I have it. I'm living with it, right?
Yeah.
So I think we all feel like, oh, I'm okay. I've been doing what I'm supposed to do, so I'm not going to get it. That's not true. So hey, I definitely just feel like at least if we take the little precautions, to make sure that we're not hurting somebody else. It's like I said, somebody else's immune system can handle it totally different from ours. I got, can I just give a quick story? And this is one of my great friends, Sharon Tunstall. She works at KMOJ. She posted this the other day, and it was a daily reminder, and I thought it was great. It says, let's say you woke up with a terrible cough, a fever, and severe body aches. Immediately, you rush to the doctor, and unfortunately, you're diagnosed with COVID-19. For the last 2 weeks, you've been unaware that you were infected, and you've ignored the rules. You've gotten together with some close friends for pizza, had a few people over, even visited a park and a beach. You figured, I don't feel sick. I have the right to keep living my normal life. No one can tell me what to do. Well, with your diagnosis, you spend the next few days at home on the couch feeling pretty crappy, but then you're well again because you're young, healthy, and strong. Lucky you. But your best friend caught it from you during a visit to your house, and because she didn't know she was contagious, she visited her 82-year-old grandfather who uses oxygen tanks daily to help him breathe because he has COPD and heart failure. Now he's dead. Your coworker who has asthma caught it too during your little pizza get-together. Now he's in the ICU, and he's spread it to a few others in his family too, but they don't know that for another couple of weeks yet. The cashier at the restaurant where you picked up the pizza carries the infection home to his wife who has MS, which makes her immunosuppressed. She's not as lucky as you. So she's admitted to the hospital because she's having trouble breathing. She may need to be placed in a medically induced coma and intubated. She may not get to say goodbye to her loved ones. She may die surrounded by machines with no family at her bedside. All because you couldn't stand the inconvenience of a mask, of staying home, of changing your familiar routines for just a little while because you have above all others' rights to continue living your normal life, and no one has the right to tell you what to do.
That's
Social
a powerful
is not about you.
story.
Yeah, that's powerful.
That is powerful, Kim.
That brings it home, right?
It brings it home, and I'm glad it's coming from you. And what I've known about you, you're real spiritual, and you take this stuff seriously. So there's a couple ways I want to go with your story, and I am appreciative that you are taking the time out of your busy day and your schedule to talk about this. You've contacted it. What are some of the challenges that you're facing, right? Because we're talking about the self-quarantine. You talked about testing. What are challenges that you're facing with the illness, whether it's family, whether it's being able to work, just the mental health side of it, the physical? Talk about some of those challenges that you're facing now.
So, the first thing physically is, like I said, the back pain. The loss of the taste and smell I could deal with. The back pain, I toss and turn throughout the night. I have to take Tylenol every day. I take 500 a couple times a day. Just waking up in pain, it's no fun. So that is the part that I'm hoping. And I'll be honest, like I've had back pain kind of all my life, so I didn't know that it was a symptom. I initially started taking a leave before I got tested because my back was hurting, and I thought it was just a normal, regular back pain. But then when I went to get tested, and the paperwork that they gave me said, hey, you should to take Tylenol for body aches and pain. I'm like, oh, my God, this pain that I've been having consistently every day, that's been giving me a headache is from COVID. It's not from my regular normal pain. So be aware of that. I also, one thing that somebody told me, or that the doctors told me, was not to take a leave or ibuprofen because they can cause blood clots with COVID. So you definitely don't want to, risk the chance of getting a blood clot. So that's important if you're having any symptoms to just use Tylenol and Tylenol only. No Tylenol PM, I also heard. So just, FYI. Also, one of the other things, as I mentioned before, was just, it kind of hurts to see and hear family members of people close to you who feel like, that, oh, I'm fine, I've been doing fine, you know what I'm saying? Or, and they just, they walk around without a mask, or because the mask doesn't protect you, it protects the other people that you're around. And so if everybody is wearing a mask, then you're protected.
Absolutely. Right. Glam Life Kim is here sharing her story on COVID. This part of KMOJ is sponsored, or Minneapolis 360 is sponsored by KMOJ. So I want to make sure that definitely KMOJ was willing to be able to share this story. So appreciate you, Zany, and your crew there.
Absolutely.
To be able to have Glam Life Kim on. And Kim, you've been so integral in this show, and and we've talked about contact tracing before too. So we talked about how that looks like. Can you just give us some things that the health department, have they contacted you, and the information that they were kind of trying to get from you, and the privacy factor of it? Can you talk about your experience with that?
Absolutely. And so it's funny because if I'm not mistaken, Kevin's voice sounded really familiar. I think he was from the Minnesota Department of Health and Contact.
Yeah.
So, one of the things when they did call me, of course, they do want to know who you've been in contact with. That's very important. And so they will reach out to the people who you've been in contact with just to give them a heads up. So even if you didn't feel as comfortable doing it. However, like I said, I feel it's nothing to be ashamed of. If you care about the life of, these other people, if you care about lives, period, you should reach out and just let them know that they've been exposed. Because it's important that if you have been exposed, it's important, you guys, just do the 14-day self-isolation. You can call the Minnesota Department of Health. They'll give you a letter for your job. I mean, you don't have to worry. If you're worried about work, hopefully unemployment will help you out during the time. There's a whole bunch of different relief grants and programs and resources that can assist you if you're worried about how you're going to be able to maintain financially. But it's important to do that because just as I mentioned in that story, as soon as you go around someone else whose immune system may not be as strong as yours, you can cause their death, and nobody wants that on their conscience.
Yeah, that's very true. Talk about the privacy. Did they tell you things would be private, that they would not divulge information? Because I know we talked about that with contact tracing as well. Did you feel that happened?
So yes, I don't remember him actually saying anything as far as privacy. They do ask you, as far as if you want to, they get your approval on what information can be given and not given. So I'm sure that it's very confidential and that you don't have to worry about the information being released. Oh, I'll say they did ask me, even with KMOJ, when they reached out to KMOJ, they did ask me, is it okay if I give my name? And I said, absolutely. I have no shame, in this whatsoever. So they do ask you. So, but if you want to remain anonymous, that's fine. It's okay. If you don't have nobody to talk to, feel free to inbox me, call the station. They'll connect you with me. I'm here. I no judgment at all, and I will definitely hold your information confidential. I won't share it with anyone. I think that it's just important to get the things off your chest or to have somebody to talk to about what you're feeling or experiencing, and that's important to me.
And absolutely. And what I wanted to say with the confidentiality is that you can give them your name, and you have the option not to as well. Because what the health department is saying that somebody you've been in contact with contacted COVID, but you are able to give your name and information. And like you said, there's no shame in the letting that know, because you want community to make sure that they stay safe, and this is what you do to make sure that you're protecting your loved ones.
Absolutely. Now, one other thing that I kind of want to speak on too real quick is the messages from the doctors and from the nurses, I've kind of noticed have been different, and depending on the clinic or the doctor or the medical center that you go to. I personally, my clinic is Park-Nicollet, and so, they sent me to be tested in the suburbs. When I left from the testing, they gave me a pamphlet, documentation. They gave me a letter from my employer, so that way I can remain in the house because I've been, exposed, or because I'm experiencing symptoms. Not all the clinics and the doctors are doing that, and I hate to say this, but unfortunately I've noticed that, hey, if you go to some of the clinics or doctors in the city, they aren't giving you the same information. They aren't telling you to wait the 14 days. And, since COVID has popped up, it's been clear that, hey, 2 weeks, right? Stay in, isolate yourself for 2 weeks. If you have any symptoms, if you're exposed to anyone with it. And so I just want to say, hey, if you didn't get those instructions, it doesn't matter if you receive them or not. To be on the safe side and to save someone else's life, it won't kill you to stay in and self-isolate yourself for 2 weeks. There's things that you can find to do for fun at home. If you need some help with that, like I said, contact me. But I still make money sitting in my bedroom. So
That's right. That's right.
So it doesn't have to stop, you know?
Yeah, but Kim, your hustle is also different than a lot of people's too. So you bad. Is there any questions before we wrap up that you want to ask Kim?
No, I just I like the message here. One thing that the city clinics, if they're not doing their jobs, hopefully after this broadcast they will be. Right?
Yes,
It's time for them to step it up. But the overall message that I like here and that I want people to take away from this conversation and from this, from this incident is that there's hope. Right? There's hope. If you contract COVID-19, there is care. There are people out there who know what to do. If you do the right thing, you can spare the lives and the health of those around you, those who you care about the most, even people you don't know that you're harming. Right? So I think that people should keep that hope. Like this is not necessarily a death sentence if you contract COVID-19. If you do the right things, take the right precautions, take the right steps, isolate yourself, then there's something on the other side of it, and that's why I respect you coming forward, and I just love that story. I love that part of it. So I'm glad that everybody now knows that and they know it personally. Because I was just saying that a lot of people are just not taking it seriously. I look out the window, I see 4 people hugging and pounding. You know what I'm saying? And just kicking it, right? So they're not taking it seriously. And I was telling my wife, I was like, it's not gonna hit home with most people until it happens to somebody standing next to them, or until it happens to them. Until that happens, there's so many other things going on in your life and in your world and in your day-to-day routine that you're not going to take it seriously until it hits home. And so now that it has for us, I know for me, for all of us here at KMOJ, we love you. We appreciate you coming forward to tell this story. And now it's real, right?
It's real. And thank you. I love you guys, too. Yes, and anyone who has a question, feel free, like I said, to inbox me on Facebook. I've been posting different statuses and things that I see that can help, to keep you guys safe, any type of, things to help you as far as keeping things clean. I will start a group page, like I said, so if anybody has questions or comments or want to remain anonymous, it doesn't matter. Call me. Feel free. Inbox me. I'm here for you. I just want to encourage everybody to stay informed and stay safe. One quick little quote before we wrap it up. Social distancing is not about you. Wearing a mask is not about you. Staying home is not about you. Getting tested, it's not about you. It's to protect the other person, the people that you are around. And so at the end of the day, if you do that for them, hopefully they will do that for you.
Glam Life Kim, that was a beautiful quote. You dropped a lot of dimes today on this show. Yes. So I just want to let you know that there's so much information that you gave folks today, and I hope that it really hit home. And I know that was your purpose, to make sure that your story, your testimonial hit home for folks. And I think you hit a home run, sister. So I am, just to say this from my end, you've been a big part of the show, Minneapolis 360. So I am hoping and praying for your speedy recovery. And I am blessed to be able to share this space with you today, sister. So I am praying for your health. And I can't wait to hear you in a couple weeks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I just want to send my condolences and prayers out to the family of George Floyd. I mean, that's so unfortunate. Yes, and I'm praying for you guys. I know it's not easy. And, hey, that's another situation. You got everyone that we need to stick up. Let's stick together. Let's let them know they are not alone in this. The family of Orlando Castile, the family of Jamar Clark. We got to do something, you guys, to make sure that this doesn't continue to exist.
Absolutely. And Thurman, the family of Thurman Blevins as well, too. So
yeah. Ahmad, there's so many we can name. Oh, my God, it's sad.
It is right. So it's like we've seen this movie before. So we got to keep strong, Minneapolis. Glam Life, it's a pleasure. Sis, stay well, be safe, and thank you for coming on today.
Pleasure's all mine.
Glam Life
Twin
Kim.
Cities, I love you.
and they love you back. I know I do too. We are out of time. We had went an hour today with some lot of information. I hope folks got a lot of information today, and hopefully really got inspired by Kim's story. My brother Zany Clay, thank you for riding shotgun today, brother. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
This is Minneapolis 360. I will see you guys next week. Peace.